Oh, the part about mall cops, I was in the middle of a debate organization for women, the president of Now here in New York said to me, you know, the JFK airport is the epicenter of human trafficking in the United States. What should we do about it? And what I basically said was the following, that the Port Authority Police needs to work much more closer with both the NYPD and federal law enforcement and not act like the words you used, which I will never use again.
Okay, I think we got it. I think we got it. You know what? Let's move on.
He said a moment ago I would annihilate charter schools. He said I would destroy our efforts at Sandy 8 if I tried to make sure that people affected by Sandy got jobs. He called the mayor an idiot. He called law enforcement officials mall cops. He insulted law enforcement officials. That's not what a mayor does. A mayor unifies. A mayor shows respect. A mayor makes sure we set a positive tone in the city. We have to do tough things in city government, but we do it of respecting the people we work for, and I haven't seen that in Mr. Loda's approach.
Thank you both. Let's move on.
My entire career, I've done nothing but work with people and bring them together.
Your ad certainly does. Your ad doesn't look like together.
It's trying to tell people what would happen to you and how dangerously reckless you are.
It's race-baiting and fear-mongering. You know it.
Stop.
You know it.
There's nothing race-baiting about that.
There's nothing race-baiting about it.
You want to throw out the race card?
I just said it.
Let's talk about the various different mass cards that are put out for the thousands of people that are killed in this city. Let's talk about the report cards for the kids who are being kept in failing schools. Let's talk about the scorecard that says New York City is the highest taxed city in the country. Don't tell me I threw out the race card, because there is nothing racial in there.
Mr.
And Bill, you cannot stoop that low to bring that up.
As upset as he wants to be.
I'm not upset.
But the bottom line is, his ad depicted images of riots, of dead bodies in the streets, of racial imagery, clearly meant to be fear-mongering. Go look at your own ad. Go look at your own ad.
You tell
Anybody who looks at that ad knows what he's up to, and is what his boss Rudy Giuliani used to be up to, and it's not what a mayor should be doing.
Okay.
Look, I am getting sick and tired of you impugning the integrity of Rudy Giuliani. Let me tell you something.
I would be happy.
To make
he did more to divide than any mayor in recent memory.
This city
That's
than
just not true, Joe.
David Dinkins did more to divide this city during his period of time. The murders that happened, the actions that happened. Believe me, the reason why he got thrown out is because he was divisive.
You know, Joe Loda is using a Republican right-wing playbook. I have seen this more times than I could count. I compared his ad to the Willie Horton ad because it immediately reminded me of it. I felt like it was the 1980s all over again. We've got to get away from this. Rudy Giuliani did divide us very consciously. And it hurt this city, and it held us back, and we've done a lot better since then.
Okay, gentlemen, please.
What color is the sky in your planet?
Gentlemen,
I didn't know we all had different planets.
Only 10 minutes ago, we had a kumbaya moment.
Mr. Loda appears to think he has his own planet.
No, I don't have my own planet, but you're making absurd comments. You're making absolutely absurd
10
comments.
Minutes ago, we
you're
had
only impugning me.
Only 10 minutes ago, we had a kumbaya moment.
No, he had a kumbaya moment.
What if we put it...
Maurice, I tried to offer it as a joint kumbaya moment.
What if we say timeout? What if we say timeout? I think we got the idea. We got the idea where you stand. Let's move on. Affordable housing. This is for both of you. We'll start with Mr. de Blasio. You've both made it clear that you would aggressively build affordable housing in our city. I'm curious, so in a city where the average income is around $50,000 a year, what should the rent be for a two-bedroom apartment?
Well, this is what I'd say about affordable housing. We have to build, my plan is 200,000 units over the next 10 years. And we achieve that with very strong requirements for developers that they have to create affordable housing if they want the opportunity.
Sir, I'm looking for a number.
No, I'm getting there. Yeah. If they want an opportunity to build in this city, using our pension funds, changing our tax codes to open up vacant land, there's a series of things we have to do. Look, I think what's happening in this city, 46% of people in this city at or near the poverty level. For a lot of folks, annual income, 30, 40, $50,000, so they need a rent that they can afford. Might be in the $1,000 to $1,500 a month range, for example.
So given that, would you
But that's one example. We're obviously talking about a sliding scale depending on income.
Would you force developers to build it? How can they make that work financially?
Because what we would offer to developers is opportunities that they can't have right now. Look, this is the key part. The public sector controls the spigot of development. We would give opportunities to developers to develop areas they're not developing yet, and to have the heightened density to truly make it profitable. But we'd say the only way you get to develop is if you give us enough affordable housing and with enough mix of income levels covered to actually represent what's going on in this city today. We have the power of in New York City to do that, to require that. Mayor Bloomberg wouldn't do it. He was lenient towards the real estate industry. He had many situations where they promised to create affordable housing and then didn't follow through on the promise.
Thank you, sir.
I would make it a requirement.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lotus, same question.
Somewhere between $750 and $1,250 for someone who's making $50,000 a year, and I'm presuming it's a family. That's what the number needs to be. We need to subsidize these homes by giving them tax breaks on the real property tax. What I've talked about, and by the way, Mr. de Blasio said I've done nothing in affordable housing. Well, let me tell you, for 5 years of my life, I did nothing but finance lower and moderate income housing here in New York, in the state of Connecticut, and in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. My experience is vast and broad on the financing side. But here's what we also need to do. We need to find out where we can build it. I want every piece of surplus property that's owned by a state agency. As mayor, I want to use it to build affordable housing. I want for the 30 or 35 post offices that the post office wants market rate housing. I don't want that to happen. I want it as mayor, and I want to be able to make it affordable housing. It can be done in this city. We just have to focus on it and use our tax policies to make that an incentive program.
Selling off public assets. There's a proposal to sell a portion of Flushing Meadows Park for a pro soccer stadium. And there are other plans to sell public property to private developers. Under what circumstances do you believe that public assets should be sold to private developers? Let's start with Mr. Loda.
We have to be very, very careful when we sell public assets to private developers. What we should be doing, if anything, is having a long-term lease. And so the property stays with the city and you have a stream of income over time, and then at the end the property comes back to the city. That way it makes sense and it actually stays as an asset of the city of New York. But here's what I'll tell you about the soccer stadium. It shouldn't be in that park. We don't have enough park space in the city. I don't like when we alienate any portion of a park for a private sector development of any type. So I believe that we need to be very careful when we sell park space. And I'm not sure I buy into it that you can take park and then get parks to us and say benefit to the city of New York. We can't give up our precious park space. It really enhances our quality of life.
Mr. de Blasio, 1 minute, same question.
Sure. Look, the history of this city is filled with giveaways to big corporations, giveaways to sports teams. It's time to recognize that the public's interest needs to come first. So, for example, when it comes to a sports team that wants some parkland, well, look, in most cases, it shouldn't happen. The only condition under which it might happen is if they truly can give us a parkland, and that's something that the community needs to play a real role in judging, and operating money for the park. Flushing Meadows is a great example. For many families, that's where they go for their, in effect, for their summer vacation. But it's not in the greatest shape. If their gave us the right conditions and gave us enough financial subsidy to make that park better, that's worth discussing. But no giveaways. If teams think that they can dictate the rules, they got another thing coming, and we don't need soccer unless it's going to be done on the people's terms. And that's, by the way, true for the larger question of corporate subsidies. One of the things I've said is let's get away from subsidizing big corporations and use that money instead to help people at the grassroots, for example, small businesses.
Thank you both. Now for our lightning round. You know how this works. I give you a question.
We are familiar with the lightning round procedure.
Just for our viewers, 1 or 2 words as an answer. Mr. de Blasio, first for you. Do you own a gun?
No.
Mr. Loda?
I do not, no.
Mr. Loda, should the city charge $20 to $25 to visit the 9/11 Memorial, which is going to open in a first term?
It's unfortunate that we're in this situation. No, it should be a federal museum, not a city museum. What happened here didn't just happen to the city of New York. What happened on 9/11 happened to the United States of America. So it needs to be treated just like the Smithsonian and all the other federal-related museums.
Mr. de Blasio?
I think we need to work to get that cost down. I think federal aid should be a part of it.
Okay, Mr. de Blasio, excluding family moments, what's been the best day of your life?
Excluding family moments?
Yes, sir.
That's hard to do, because the best days by far have been the family moments. Look, I was incredibly proud when I graduated from NYU. That was certainly one of the great days of my life.
Okay, Mr. Lota?
I was going to say when my daughter graduated, but that's a family moment. Probably the next best day of my life is when we cut the ribbon to close Fresh Kills. It was a project that I worked on. It was a project I had worked on for 20 years. I was able to develop the plan, get it done, and to me, it still brings me joy every time I'm in Staten Island.
Best day, yeah, this is a lightning round. Mr. Lota, what's your biggest regret?
Calling cops a name that I shouldn't have called.
Mr. de Blasio. Mr. de Blasio, biggest regret?
My regret is that I thought that Mayor Bloomberg would do mayoral control in fairness to parents and communities.
Your biggest regret?
Right. No, I'm saying I supported it, thinking he would be sensitive to parents and communities, and he wasn't. And
your best quality to make you a good mayor in this
I thought you were going to do the other side, too, because she's listening and she has opinions on this matter. What best quality to make a mayor? That I care about people, that I really, truly care about every kind of New Yorker, the same way I care about my own family.
Mr. Lota, what would your wife say?
Tamara would say that I talk to everybody, I listen to everybody. Some people also think that's my greatest weakness. I don't believe that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now it's the opportunity for the candidates to ask each other a question. Mr. Lota, you asked the first one.
Great. Bill, you were in the administration of David Dinkins. During that period of time, there were 2,000 plus murders a year. There was a race riot during that period of time. You took phone calls from the community in Crown Heights, and you sat on it. Please tell me what this means and how you would now react to a crisis in the city of New York.
Here we go again. Mr. Lota is misrepresenting the facts. And look, moment history, and what I learned from that moment is that we have to use overwhelming force when we're confronted with such a situation. I'd also like to note that that same administration was the one that achieved the Safe Streets, Safe City program that brought our police force up to 38,000 officers and allowed us to start turning the corner on crime and bringing us to where we are today. So I think it's important to look at history the way it really was and not ascribe to people a role they didn't play. But more importantly, it's important to recognize the full history of that administration and what was done right and what helped us to become a safer city.
Mr. de Blasio, your question for Mr. Lota.
Absolutely. Mr. Lota, you know, during the Republican primary, when you were seeking the support of conservative Republicans, you went to a Tea Party gathering in Staten Island. You explicitly asked for the support of Tea Party activists. In fact, you told them they should be comforted that, in quote, many, many ways, their philosophy was similar to yours, the same Tea Party that just shut down our government. I think it was the same gathering where you told them that it should be easier to get gun permits in New York. My question is simply, are you comfortable with the fact that you sought Tea Party support for your candidacy in the Republican primary?
You know, Bill, you talk about tea so much, you remind me of the Mad Hatter. I'll be honest with you. The idea, I was invited to go talk to the Tea Party. I went out there and talked. And there are some things I agree with them on. I agree in what they believe in the Constitution. I totally disagree with what they did in Washington.
You sought their support. Let's be clear, you didn't just go for the purpose of hanging out with them. You sought their support.
I was running against a guy.
You just said you sought the support of the Tea Party in the Republican primary. Is that accurate?
I sought the support of everyone on Staten Island because I was running against a guy who actually ended up spending somewhere between $12 and $13 million impugning my integrity. I went all over Staten Island.
Can you explain why it's acceptable to seek Tea Party support when the Tea Party works against the interests of New York City every single day?
Honestly, you are the Mad Hatter. All you want to do is talk about tea. Listen, I wanted the support of all New York. I am going to be the mayor of all New York. I am not going to divide the city. I am not going to, in any way, shape, or form, say, I'm going to talk to that person, but I'm not going to talk to that person.
And you're on the Conservative Party line, the Conservative Party line.
How many questions does he get to ask?
The Conservative Party that opposes a woman's right to choose.
Maurice, sir, we're going to move on. I think we got the idea. Next question. Mr. de Blasio, you have said your wife, Shirlane, heck of a good speechwriter, by the way, is going to be a key part of your administration. What's she going to do?
No, I've said she's going to play a major role in the sense that I think there are great examples of first ladies who go out into communities, listen to what people are concerned about, make sure their voices are heard at City Hall, and address key issues in the city. And my wife is going to be an extraordinary asset as we address the problem. It's just to say clearly, she's going to be a partner in all I do, as she has been up to this moment.
Mr. Loda?
My wife as First Lady will absolutely be my partner. She's already expressed throughout her entire life involvement with making sure children can read. She spent time today in senior homes, making sure that they're getting the proper care. We need to expand what we're doing with seniors right now. Quite honestly, my wife will play an integral role in everything that I do. You know, when I come home at night or early in the morning, she tells me what she thinks. That advice is extraordinarily invaluable and has been for the last 25 years.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Loda, people in Upper Manhattan and the boroughs really like green taxis after years of getting no cabs or being passed by cabs throughout the city. A lot of the folks living there, they're starting to rely on them. They really like them. Why would you get rid of green cabs?
Green cabs in Upper Manhattan are absolutely the right thing to do. They are not the right thing to do in the boroughs outside of Manhattan. Right now, we have enough car services, and we need to use technology. We need to have, you know, an app that people can use on their phones, an app that they can use on their iPad.
Shouldn't they be able to just hail a cab?
And let me finish. In addition to the app, we should allow, TLC is run amok. TLC makes up rules that absolutely make no sense. Outside of Manhattan, anybody should be able to get a car service and be able to hail them, not have the car service stay in front of their dispatch office and just get dispatch. They should be allowed to go out and be able to hail and pick up passengers by having them hail.
Mr. de Blasio, same question. What's wrong with green cabs?
Well, look, I think the bottom line here is that we need to make sure that there's good service available for outer borough residents and folks in northern Manhattan, but at the same time protect what's working right now, our car services, particularly in the outer boroughs, our yellow cabs. Look, one of the things I didn't like about Mayor Bloomberg's plan is he didn't talk to the industry, he didn't try and figure out what would work. And in the end, I think the plan he's put together has a lot of holes in it. I've said that I'd start over to make sure that we maximize the ability to do street hails in every part of the city, but protect the strengths of our current industry and the balance of our current industry so it can keep working for the long term in this city.
But sir, the industry is one thing. What about the consumers? What's good for the consumer?
Maurice, this is all about the consumer. My point is that right now, consumers benefit from a yellow taxi industry that works for us and a car service on-call industry that works for us. We can add outer borough hails and upper Manhattan hails into it if we do it the right way. But I think a lot of the mayor's plan is unfortunately going to pit all the pieces against each other and undermine the integrity and the availability of the service for all consumers.
Mr. Loda,
this is my kumbaya moment with Bill de Blasio. I totally agree with them. And you know why we have this point of view? We both live in Brooklyn, and we know how good the car services can be. We shouldn't be able to destroy these businesses and go forward. Mr. de Blasio is absolutely right. The lack of communication between the TLC and the industry is extraordinary. It needs to change. I agree with them on one other thing. Right at the top, all the way down.
Okay, next question, gentlemen. Mr. de Blasio, you got a lot of support from the anti-horse carriage lobby. You called for an immediate end to horse carriage rides in Central Park. You've also received support from the union that's representing the carriage drivers. So, are carriage rides going to continue, or are they going to come to an end?
I have said very clearly we are ending horse carriages in New York City. That would be my plan, my administration's plan. We would need the approval of the City Council, but we'll get it done. Because there's no place for horse carriages anymore in New York City. And by the way, major cities all around the world have been ending this because it's cruel, because it's inhumane, and horses don't belong in the middle of the busiest city in the world. So we will get this done, and we'll get it done quickly. And yes, I received support from a union that feels the other way, but that doesn't change my opinion one bit. And I've made that clear to that union. I'm moving forward on this plan.
So what becomes of the drivers?
I think the drivers can have a new opportunity to use what I've proposed, replica electric cars that look like cars from, say, the 1920s and 30s, would cover the same routes, but would go with electric power. Those new jobs in our thriving tourist industry, I would make available first come, first serve to the folks who currently have the horse carriages.
Mr. Loda, same question. Carriage rides continue or end?
Carriage rides should end using horses. We need to completely redo our carriages. We don't need to have antique cars to do it. Other cities that have gotten rid of the horses have put motors inside of those same carriages. And then the drivers are allowed to have those romantic rides all the way through Central Park. That's what we should do. Where Bill got in trouble with this whole thing is that he said he was going to eliminate it on day one. I understand. I agree with them. We need to eliminate it. We need to eliminate it as fast as possible.
Has either of you taken a carriage ride, by the way?
Many, many years ago, when I was young, but not recently.
Mr. Loda?
Nope.
No. Okay. Moving on. Mr. Loda, you've said you want the city to take control of all the MTA bridges and tunnels, correct? Take control away from New York State. How do you plan to make that happen? Aren't you leaving the door open for tolls on all of the East River bridges?
No, it has nothing to do with tolls on the East River bridges. It has to deal with the fact that the MTA is really destroying the relationship that it has with its bridge and tunnel division. They are increasing those fares far beyond what they should be. They've gone up significantly. Look, when Governor Rockefeller took the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority away from the City of New York and then the Board of Estimate, it needs to come back. It should be the mayor and the City Council that determines the tolls. Right now, those bridge and tunnels are actually charging $1.4 billion, and it's generating a little over $600 million in excess cash flow, free cash flow. That money is going to subsidize the Long Island Railroad and Metro North and the subway system. I understand the need to subsidize them, but at the same time, it's the same state that's keeping to reducing the subsidies to our mass transit in New York. We need to get control. $15 to go across round trip any one of the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authorities and their major bridges is absolutely wrong. It's destroying the economy, it's destroying economic development, and it's really hurting people who want to go visit their families in any other part of the city. Whether you go from Queens to the Bronx to visit Grandma, it costs $15. Same thing with the Verrazano Bridge.
Thank you, sir. Mr. de Blasio, 1 minute to rebut.
Well, first of all, you know, when Mr. Loda ran the MTA, there were fare increases, there were toll increases. So, you know, I hope there's consistency in his approach here. But look, what I'm saying is this. Whenever we ask for something to be run by the City of New York that currently is not, the central question is what kind of financing dynamics exist. I don't want a situation that makes us financially less strong. I love the notion, obviously, of the city being able to control its own destiny more. There's many areas where we have to do this. For example, strengthening our rent regulation and gaining that power back from Albany, or the ability to make our own decisions on revenue. We shouldn't have to go to Albany on things like that. But if we're going to take control of certain assets, we have to make sure that we don't end up financially losing in the bargain. We're going to go through some tough fiscal times in the next few years, in particular because of the open labor contract. So whatever transaction might occur, it cannot make the City of New York less financially sound.
Thank you, sir. One more question here, please. Mr. de Blasio, would you take out the tables and chairs from Times Square and Herald Square and reopen Broadway?
I have profoundly mixed feelings on this issue. I'm a motorist myself, and I was often frustrated. And then I've also seen, on the other hand, that it does seem to have a positive impact on the tourist industry. So for me, the jury's out on that particular question. I think it's worth assessing what the impact has been on traffic, what the impact has been on surrounding businesses. I would keep an open mind.
Same question, Mr. Loda.
I, too, have a split mind. You know, I don't understand why it's there 24 hours a day. Why can't we do it on a part-time basis, open it up during periods of time when there's a lot of traffic, during rush hour, and then put it back? Look, we've got 300,000 workers in the City of New York. We can find a place to put the chairs and put the tables and then put it back, which are really being used mostly by tourists. It's important to have a tourist industry in New York, but at the same time, we need to get traffic moving around this island.
Okay, split on that. 30 seconds for this one, gentlemen. Gambling. With the proliferation of racinos and some people describing gambling as a regressive tax on the poor, do you support the expansion of gambling? Mr. de Blasio.
I do. I support the referendum, and I think Governor Cuomo's right on this. Look, the bottom line is a lot of gambling is happening in states around us. A lot of New Yorkers are going there and spending money, which is creating jobs in those states and giving those states revenue that we need here. So gambling, it's a part of life. and we have to take advantage of the fact that if it's going to exist, like it or not, if it's going to exist, let's make the most of it for the people of New York City, New York State, by making sure revenue comes from gambling that stays in our own state. Jobs come from gambling that our own people get. That's why I think it's a common sense measure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loda, gambling?
I agree with Governor Cuomo. We should pass this constitutional amendment. Gambling is going to be here in New York State. We ought to be able to take advantage of it and use the proceeds of that to fund our education system.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It is time now for closing statements, and by coin toss, Mr. Loda, you get to go first.
Well, thank you, Maurice, and thank you for everyone at home who tuned in to listen to tonight. Look, in 2 weeks, we're going to go to the polls. We're going to be able to vote about our future. And to me, our future is our children. We need to make sure that our streets are safe. We need to make sure that we reform our public school system, our entire public school system. And we need to make sure that our children, as well as everyone in New York, has an opportunity for a good job in this city. You know, a few weeks ago, I marched with parents across the Brooklyn Bridge. They were all wearing shirts that said, "My child, my choice." Mr. de Blasio wasn't there because he doesn't believe in school choice. When I was deputy mayor, I worked with the NYPD to make our streets safe. Mr. de Blasio, like he did during this debate, talks up the NYPD, but he has policies that will not make us safe. We are one mayor away from unsafe schools and unsafe fiscal policy. I'm the only person who has up here that has the experience to keep our city strong and safe and protected. Mr. de Blasio does not. So here's my question for all of you out there. In 2 weeks, when you go to vote on November 5th, for your sake, for your child's sake, do you want your vote to be safe or sorry?
Thank you, sir. Mr. de Blasio.
You know, I've been saying throughout this campaign that we're living a tale of two cities right now. Some folks are doing very well in our city. A lot of folks are struggling. Our middle class is disappearing. We keep living this way. This status quo is not acceptable for the long term. It won't help make strong and great things we can do about it. And here's some of them that I've talked about. Tax the wealthiest New Yorkers so we can have full-day pre-K for every child in the city, after-school programs for every middle school child. That's going to help us all. That's going to make the city stronger. It's going to help people strong. Affordable housing, we need some affordable housing for everyday New Yorkers. And we need to protect community hospitals that have so often been under threat. By keeping our hospitals in place, by creating affordable housing, that makes us stronger for the future. That makes New York City a place for everyone. Finally, we need to stay safe. We need a safe city and a fair city. The best way to create safety for the long term is to take the incredible work of the NYPD and strengthen it by ending the quota system, by ending the profiling, and community together for the future safety of our city. That's the direction that I want to take us in, a new progressive direction. I'm Bill de Blasio, and I would be honored to earn your vote on November 5th.
Bill de Blasio, Joe Loda, gentlemen, thank you very much. Here, as well as the folks at the CUNY TV studios. We want to remind everybody that the election is November 5th. Your vote counts. We hope to see you tonight on CBS 2 News at 11. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm Maurice Dubois. Have a good evening.
Through its NYC Votes programs, the Campaign Finance Board connects New Yorkers with the information they need to be informed, engaged voters. Along with these debates, the CFB prints the city's official nonpartisan New York City Voter Guide, produces a video voter guide, and has introduced a new mobile platform, nycvotes.org, which makes election and candidate information available right at your fingertips.
There is a vitality to this city that is just awesome.
There's a boldness about the people and the city itself.
There is so much beauty here, so much strength.
Sure, this is a tough town, but it's more than that.